Are you going to stay off here? Okay. What's up, Laguna? Coming here, yeah. How you guys doing? How you doing? Meek. What's up, man? Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Let me introduce this is my friend, Meek Mill. I'm sorry, we go. What's up? What's up? How you doing? Good to see you again. What's up? Oh my God, Dwayne, what's up? Good to see you. Alrighty. I'm gonna come back around this way. It was good. Yeah, it was good. Good to see you. Good to see you, Sheree. How you see you? So make sure you got every shot. Let's go. Ready to start? Okay. Good morning. My name is State Senator Larry Farnese. Welcome to Pennsylvania's first senatorial district. I want to thank again Governor Wolf for bringing us all here today. I'm proud to stand here with my colleagues as part of this important conversation on the need for criminal justice reform. In addition to the speakers today, I want to recognize Senator Art Haywood, who's supposed to be here today, Senator Sharif Street, Representative Jordan Harris, who else is here too? Representative McClintock is here as well too. I think, oh yes, I did have a full list, so Representative as well too, and some other folks as well. Criminal justice reform doesn't begin to end in our prisons. It starts at the community level by addressing the fact that too many people are incarcerated as a first response. The arrest of 2 African-American men at Starbucks in the Center City area a few weeks ago stands as a reminder that communities of color are disproportionately targeted for stop and frisks, arrests, incarceration. This has to change both here in Philadelphia and across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We also need to focus on providing better services for transitioning back into our communities. This means supporting correctional education programs, drug and alcohol treatment programs, and job and vocational training. These have all been proven to drastically lower recidivism rates and allow individuals to become productive members of society after their release. Again, I am proud to be in a position to stand with the folks here on this stage and effect reforms that can change thousands and thousands of lives. So thank you again for this time and this opportunity. I'd like to introduce my good friend, Representative Donna Bullock, who is representing the Legislative Black Caucus here today. Representative?
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator, and thank you to all of my colleagues who are here with us today. As Vice Chair of the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus, I share my gratitude with Governor Wolf for his work on this very important issue. The Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus has taken the lead on a number of criminal justice issues. Our chairman, Representative Jordan Harris, is leading through collaboration, successfully working across party lines to expand the expungement process so that individuals can remove the barriers of a criminal record, secure sustainable employment, and find affordable housing. Senator Sharif Street and Representative Jason Dawkins are leading with compassion, advocating for those who are serving life without parole, highlighting the financial, physical, and emotional cost of a growing elderly inmate population. My sister Representative Joanna McClinton is leading with experience. As a former public defender, she brought her intimate knowledge of the criminal justice system to the House, introducing legislation to change our cash bail system to a more sensible risk assessment process. Representative Chris Radd has led with common sense when he worked closely with our governor and our Secretary of Corrections to create the First Chance Fund, a fund supported by our businesses who contract with the state correction system, a fund that will be used to provide resources to our most vulnerable children so that they may have a first chance before we start talking about second chances. And my other sister, Representative Morgan Cephas, who came to the General Assembly leading with commitment, a commitment to raise awareness about the growing number of girls and women within our system and to show how their interaction with the criminal justice system impacts both them and their families. Together, we have worked with our stakeholders to advance legislation that keeps Pennsylvanians safe while transforming our criminal justice system so that it may be fair, equitable, and fiscally responsible. But the truth is, the criminal justice system, from arrest to incarceration to supervision and reintegration, is expensive, dollar-wise, but also to society in a more larger global ethical sense. It is expensive when it's done right, and it's even more expensive when it's done wrong. It is in all of our interests to figure out the best practices to support both victims and the accused, to provide training for our law enforcement, to eliminate the school-to-prison pipeline, to reduce duplicity and the barriers of bureaucracy, and to simply get it right. Governor Wolf has worked with the Black Caucus on several of our legislative proposals, and he's helped a few of them get across the finish line, and we thank you. We also look forward to our continued partnership because there is still more work to be done. Pennsylvania has 25% of all the juvenile lifers in the world. Pennsylvania's parole rate is the highest in the nation. Our more than 150 death row inmates spend most of their days in solitary confinement. And right here in Center City, Philadelphia, Afro-Americans are more likely to be arrested than any other group. And I, like many other mothers, I pray every day that my sons can safely play kickball on the streets of Strawberry Mansion, that they can make it home safely from school, and that they will not have a negative interaction with law enforcement simply because of the color of their skin or the zip code that they live in. Governor Wolf, I know that you pray that prayer for every child and every person in the Commonwealth, but we know that it's unfortunate that even through every step of this criminal justice system, people of color and low-income communities are disproportionately represented. I speak on behalf of the Black Caucus when I say thank you for doing more than just bringing light on these issues. I thank you for actually being committed to working towards solutions. Your 8 reform initiatives mirror much of the work of what the Black Caucus has been doing and are necessary to right this system. With that, it is my honor to introduce my former colleague in the House of Representatives, who moved on to continue to fight for Pennsylvanians in Washington, D.C., who understands what it takes to have transformative legislation in Pennsylvania and beyond, and who has been a leader on this issue, and many others, our Congressman Dwight Evans.
I'd like to thank Representative Bullock for the introduction and Senator Larry Farnese. As was just described, it's not an accident why the governor people chose this particular location. You couldn't think of a better place in terms of where the Constitution and the Liberty Bell is. And put it in context, coming from Washington, D.C., though I'm a resident and live here, it is important that the governor is taking this kind of leadership, because what the governor is doing here is something that I will also be trying to push in Washington, D.C. States are the laboratory of democracy. And what is taking place here by this governor and his leadership is clear at the state level and at the national level. We need to look at Pennsylvania as a model. But more than that, leadership matters. And this governor, in my view, in just a short period of time, has demonstrated the importance of bringing people together, the importance of making strategic investments. And you heard Representative Bullock describe and lay out a litany of items that he's talking about. One little story I will add to him so much, Governor. When I was elected in the legislature, Governor, there was 5,000 people in prison in 1980. That number far exceeds what's taking place. It is clearly a broken system, and it does not work. If you are black and poor or Latino, this is not a system that works for you. But this governor, with the leadership that he's bringing together, when you look at the cross-section of people here, it says a lot. This is the kind of politics we need. And just came back from the Hamilton Jefferson visit, and you got a chance to go visit that, you'll see the collaboration that is necessary. So I want to introduce to you a person who is a personal friend, but more than a personal friend, an excellent governor. The governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Governor Tom Wolf.
Dwight, thank you. Representative Evans. Yeah, Dwight, okay. Thank you for that nice introduction. Thank you for all of you for being here. And I am proud to be here with such a distinguished group of people for such an important thing. And I really want to thank Meek Mill for being here. Meek, where are you? There you are. There you are. His case thrust Pennsylvania's criminal justice system into a national spotlight. The outcry and the outrage surrounding the details of his circumstances and the outpouring of support for Meek showcased the broader concern and emotion over our criminal justice system as a whole. And I'm heartened that the state Supreme Court made the right decision to release Meek Mill. We know that there are a lot more like Meek in our prison. More people who belong on the outside but who are stuck in prison facing harsh sentences for small violations. They lose their freedom while all of us lose more of our tax dollars, supervising those who should not even be there in the first place. And many don't have the means to continue the fight for justice. The debate about how we can fix our criminal justice system is obviously complicated, and over time that debate has changed to reflect the modern realities and the issues in our present system. But one thing is clear. We need to make our system fairer so that we are only sending those who belong in prison to our correctional institutions, and so that we are not wasting time, we're not wasting money supervising those who simply don't belong in prison. I believe we can improve the criminal justice system so that we can protect the victims of crime. But we can do that while also ending the cycle of incarceration that has left so many people and so many families feeling trapped, helpless, without an opportunity to return to society after they've been released. The overarching goal of all the work we've done is to achieve better results through our criminal justice system, pure and simple. A prime example of our work has been the effort to create the Stepping Up initiative. We've seen a number of people with mental illnesses in prison reach a level that's 3 to 6 times higher than those suffering from mental illnesses in our society as a whole. That obviously leads to higher costs for taxpayers because we spend over double the amount serving those individuals than we do others. And it leads to worse outcomes because with strained budgets and time, we often cannot get these individuals the specialized help they really need to get better. So in April of 2017, we launched the Pennsylvania Stepping Up initiative. This is just one of those initiatives in order to reduce the number of individuals in prison who instead belong in mental health facilities. 23 of our 67 counties in Pennsylvania are already participating in this effort, and I urge the rest of the counties to join in this effort because without accurate and complete data about problems individuals in prison face, we cannot get to real solutions that will do 3 things. First, save taxpayer monies. Second, lead to better outcomes. And third, reduce the use of prisons as de facto mental health institutions. Stepping Up is just one of the actions my administration has taken to take a hard look at the criminal justice system and to try to improve it. In the past, my efforts have been supported by a bipartisan coalition that actually understands the need to improve our criminal justice system and to make it fair. We know there's more to do. We need to do a lot more to make our criminal justice system work the way it's supposed to work, so that we can ensure better outcomes for everyone, for all those involved, so that we can stop wasting time, again, money and lives by incarcerating those who really don't belong in prison, so that we can stop using our jails as mental health facilities, and so that top to bottom we can make our criminal justice system fairer, more equitable, and more productive in our society for everyone. And that's why I'm proud to be here today to call for reasonable, meaningful changes to our criminal justice system that will help eliminate these inequities, and to ask all the legislature to join me and join us to work to make our system better and fairer for everyone. We should finally pass, let me just go through some of the things we should do. We should finally pass and implement the Justice Reinvestment Initiative, or JRI-2. This is the second round of this, to address the high cost of incarceration in our state, to strengthen support for county probation programs, and to fix inadequate sentencing guidelines. Last week, the Senate passed JRI-2 and sent it to the House. I want to thank the Senate for acting on this legislation and to ask that the House take up this package as quickly as possible and get it to my desk. I'll sign it. JRI-2 will help save taxpayer money, again, by helping to make short prison sentences more predictable in length, so that when people have served their time without incident, they're able to re-enter society in a timely manner. And so our taxpayers are not footing the bill for extended prison stays after an individual has served his or her time. In addition to that, JRI-2 will invest more resources in our county probation system, improve outcomes, and increase the use of evidence-based best practices so that we can improve supervision and training to help probation officers work with formerly incarcerated individuals and make sure that we are only requiring those who present a real risk to go back to further supervision. JRI-2 will also help improve sentencing guidelines to further reduce recidivism. It will update sentencing guidelines to make sure that we're doing all that we can to reduce risk to the society. and it's going to help make sure that people are only serving time in accordance with their violation, rather than ordering longer sentences for smaller violations. In addition to JRI 2, we also need to make necessary reforms to our pre-trial system to make sure that those accused of a crime have access to competent legal counsel and also a reasonable bail system. Pennsylvania is the only state in the nation, we're the only state in the nation that fails to provide state funding to indigent defendants. This is a right. In federal law, this is a right. It's not in Pennsylvania. We don't have access for everybody, whether they can afford it or not, to a public defender. We don't have a strong public defender system. We need to change that and take a role in ensuring we have a fair defense system, because everyone deserves adequate legal representation regardless of his or her ability to pay. We also need to make sure that we're reforming our bail system. No one should ever be held in prison only because they cannot afford bail. It's basically a debtor's prison. You have a $50 bail, you can't afford it, you haven't been convicted of anything, maybe you haven't done anything. You still have to serve time in jail simply because you can't pay that $50. The only factor that should be considered when holding someone in prison is their risk to society, not whether they can come up with $50. Studies show that more pretrial time in jail also leads to worse outcomes, including a 40% higher chance of an individual committing a new crime before they even go to trial for the first crime. We should work to standardize bail amounts across counties for the same crimes and make sure that economic circumstances do not lead to more prison time. We also need to work to reform our post-trial criminal justice system to ensure that we are working toward rehabilitation of individuals and preparing them to reenter society rather than creating further risks to recidivism. We should work to reform our probation and parole revocation and resentencing system to make sure that we are not spending valuable resources on supervising individuals who do not pose a high risk for reoffending, and so that we are capping the amount of time for which someone can be sent back to prison for a parole violation that does not result in a new criminal conviction. We should also expand the current Post-Conviction Relief Act to further explain an individual's right to appeal.
Okay.
So we get audience participation here. Is that what we're doing? Yeah. That's all right. Feel free. And we should pass the current clean slate legislation while taking further steps to reduce the stigma of past convictions. Listen, I was a business owner, and one of the best sources of good employees was giving people a second chance. Yes. Clean slate legislation is not just morally right, it's also practically smart. It's good for our economy. Because when individuals have paid their debt to society and are making good progress, their past offenses should not prevent them from becoming productive members of society or the economy. Again, you want to say something? Is that right? We have seen a public outcry for criminal justice reforms, for changes to our system that will make sure that only those who belong in prison are put there, and that individuals are only serving time in proportion to the crimes they have actually committed. Simply put, these reforms make sense. They're right, but they also make sense. They lead to better outcomes. They lead to reduced recidivism, and they save taxpayer dollars. I have pushed, and I will continue to push, for meaningful reforms that will ensure our system is fair for everyone, equitable for everyone, and focused on real rehabilitation for individuals who are sentenced to prison. I ask that the legislature, again, join me in my effort, in our effort, to make our criminal justice system work better so that we can build a system that the public, everyone in this Commonwealth, has confidence in, and so that we can achieve better results when we are sending individuals to prison. So I want to thank all of my partners here who've already been working to implement some of these reforms and who have dedicated themselves tirelessly to improving our system. The Philadelphia legislative delegation, who has advocated for fairness in our criminal justice system from the beginning on the principle that no one's level of wealth, no one's race, no one's creed should lead to different conditions in imprisonment. And Meek Mill, I want to thank you. You're committed to using your situation and your platform to push for these reforms for everyone who faces similar circumstances that you did. But those who don't necessarily have the same national profile that you did, I think this is really good. good on. I want to thank you on behalf of everybody. You're committed to helping us institute reforms to the system that will make it fair and more equitable for everyone. And I am proud to call you a partner in this effort. So thank you to everyone here for joining me today. Let's continue to work for a Pennsylvania that is fair for everyone in this Commonwealth. And so now it is my great honor to introduce Michael Rubin. Michael.
Thank you, Governor Wolf, not only for your courage, but for your strong commitment to fixing our broken criminal justice system, one that has cost my good friend Meek Mill the last 6 months of his life in jail, but really his entire adult life being trapped in a completely broken probation system that is tearing apart lives versus rehabilitating them. You know, as long as I can remember, I always believe that things happen for a reason. And although Meek was wrongfully convicted, his sacrifice must be a learning moment for all of us by highlighting the national need for immediate criminal justice reform. Starting in Pennsylvania, we all need to work together to ensure that people are not unfairly incarcerated, as so many people are, for lengthy periods of time due to technical probation violations. We shouldn't be using our government's time and resources on targeting the everyday Meek Mills. That approach, it's not making our communities safer. Instead, it's ruining lives and wasting taxpayer dollars. I support the governor's position to make our criminal justice system more focused on rehabilitation and giving people the tools to return to society and realize their full potential. I'm very optimistic that Governor Wolf's dedication to improving the bail system and the sentencing structure will ultimately make Pennsylvania's criminal justice system more logical and more fair. Meek and I have discussed so many times that his situation is no different than so many others, except for he had the resources, the friends, and all of his fans to bring attention to his situation. I stand by here today incredibly confident that Meek realizes both his significant responsibility and the massive opportunity to be a change for meaningful change. He's eager to make our country a better place for every citizen, black, brown, or white, by helping shine a light on the need for criminal justice reform and forcing the necessary change. I look forward to working with him, as well as Governor Wolf, to reform the system. And that starts right here in Philadelphia. And with that said, I'd like to introduce my good friend and the heart and soul of Philadelphia, Meek Mill. One more thing, big game tonight, go Sixers.
I would like to thank Michael Rubin, the Governor, Wolf, actually everyone standing up here with me, who many of these men and women have been supporting me since I have been entangled in the criminal justice system. And I wouldn't like to use this time to speak on my situation, because I actually know the errors of the criminal justice system personally, because I've been tangled in the system since 18 years old. I'm actually 30 years old, really 31. I'll be 31 on Sunday. And I feel like everything happens for a reason. What I went through is terrible, and I think it's a path that God put me on for a better time, like right now, because it's still surreal to me to even be in a situation where you have people like Governor Wolf actually talking about criminal justice reform, when it was like, you guys know, it was years these guys had came to see me in CFCF because of a violation. At one point in my life, I was actually addicted to opioids, and I think it should be a line drawn where you have a drug problem and you're scared to tell your probation officer you have a drug problem because you don't want to be sent to prison for years. And actually, I would like to thank my probation officer in Montgomery County. Her name is Kathy Subio. It was one point in my life I had a drug problem years ago, and I told her I had a drug problem, and she asked me that I want help, and she put me in a rehabilitation program, and it changed my life. And I actually made a commitment to speaking for the voiceless, the men that Governor Wolf speak about, that's incarcerated, some of the men and women. I actually spent time with these men and women and watch families being broken apart because of drug addiction, mental illness, technical violations. I actually watched the Starbucks situation play out through media, and if that was me in Starbucks on probation, I would have been actually in technical violation and still would have been able to be legally sentenced to 2 to 4 years in prison just because I came in contact with police. And growing up in the streets of Philadelphia as a black man, a black young man, we come in contact with the police on a daily basis. And as of right now, Philadelphia probation laws, if you come in contact with police, no matter if you're found guilty or you're innocent of a crime, legally you're still allowed to be put in jail. And I think things like that will keep communities like mine where I come from down. I grew up in a single parent home with my mother. I lost my father when I was 5 years old. And at 30 years old, I was in prison for a technical violation. I have a 6-year-old son, so I want to thank God first. I always say God is my first lawyer. Thank God for being able to be here and be a part of history. I don't want to make this long because I'm still overwhelmed. I come from being in prison just 7 days ago, and I'm still overwhelmed. I tell Mike, I tell all my friends that it was a traumatic experience, and I'm happy to be back and be a part of what I call history, because I know it's a lot of voiceless men and people I personally know from being in prison, sitting next to them every day, who are dependent on me. And I feel like God has given me a great platform to help many others and make Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the world a better place. And that's all I have to say. I would like to thank everyone who has supported me, because I never used the platform to think. I seen a lot of kids out there standing in the rain outside the Criminal Justice Center supporting me and a lot of other young men who has been tangled in the criminal justice system for most of our lives. So I would like to thank everyone here today, and Governor Tom Wolf. Excuse me if I'm a little nervous. I told Mike today, because me, it's unbelievable to be in a situation where growing up since adult, 18 years old, we've been treated, I feel as though we've been treated wrongly when it comes to the criminal justice. I'm overwhelmed at this point, and I appreciate everything. Thank you, y'all. I would like to introduce the governor, because I forgot.
He has a good public presence, doesn't he? No, I want to thank, again, everybody for being here, and especially I want to thank Meek Mill and Michael Rubin. Meek, you have a really good friend in Michael Rubin, and
sure.
Pennsylvania has a good friend in Michael Rubin. I think you guys
I have
both.
a really good friend in the two of you, so thank you.
Thanks. And I think we've all worked hard and will continue to work hard to make Pennsylvania a fairer, better place for everybody. And this is a start. And I appreciate your standing up and speaking out on behalf of this. And Michael, thank you for all the work you're doing on this. So we will be happy to take questions now.
Governor, do you think Mr. Meek Mill should be retried, or should that simply be stopped right now?
The reforms that I'm supporting would actually mean that Meek Mills would not even face the prison that he faced. I mean, how many years did you spend in prison on probation?
I was arrested in 2009. I was 19 years old. I'm 30 years old, so I would say 11 years, almost 12 years, 11, 12 years.
Do you notice how he keeps saying he's only 30 years old? For us old guys, that's really it's an insult. Just have to say.
You think it should be? He should not be retried, in your view?
No, I think the reforms that I'm proposing would be that in addition to that, he would not be eligible for retrial on the basis of anything you do that's not connected with some new offense. These were technical parole violations.
Technical violations are not considered as a crime. As I said before, if I was in Starbucks with them two young men,
Here, come on. So
as I said before, if I was in Starbucks with them two young men, I would still legally be able to be sentenced to a 2 to 4 year prison system, no matter if I was guilty of, what crime was that? What is that crime called? Starbucking while black. Even if I was Starbucking while black, I would still be legally. No disrespect to Starbucks, but I would still be.
Is there anything about your behavior in all of this that you regret and may have led to your incarceration?
I was young. I grew up in a ruthless environment in North Philadelphia, where a drug-plagued neighborhood where I seen many men die, many men go to jail on a regular daily basis, and I was trained to think this was normal. I was trained to think going to prison was normal, and I don't regret anything that I ever been through to put me in this situation right now, because this situation right now is history, and I don't know. I put it in God's hand. God's put me in this situation, and I know moving forward I could be a better person from this day on.
Meek, I'm Joe from CBS 3. I was in the courtroom the day that you were tangling with Judge Janice Franklin.
By the way, too, I was advised not to do press, but I feel like it's an important issue for me to speak right now.
My question, though, is that as you were trying to sway her not to send you, quote, behind the wall that day, back in November, what about her role in all of this? It was pretty unilateral. I mean, she had the full power over your destiny. What has to change about that?
I just think, I can't speak on my case personally, but I think that it should be a cap on if you're a drug addict and you use drugs again. If you have 10 years of probation and you use drugs again, legally, you could be sentenced to 10 years in prison. And I don't think any human being should be locked, shackled from top to bottom, ankle to hand, because they used marijuana or was addicted to opioids. I just don't think. I think it should be a cap. I travel a lot, and I deal with a lot of young black men from different states who are on probation. Some states have technical violation caps, like if you violate technical violation, use drugs, you get 30 days in prison, 60 days in prison, 6 months. Basically, in Pennsylvania, you violate, you could get every year of probation back handed to you as a state prisoner. And I think things like that break families.
Which is just to finish that, which is why the package of reforms includes caps on what you can be sent back to prison for in terms of parole violations. They don't work. And it also includes reform of what we're using our prisons for. They are not institutions for restoring a person's mental health or to treat people with substance use disorder. It's not meant to do that. We cannot arrest our way to a cure for this. So these reforms, as I said, actually make sense for Pennsylvania, everybody in Pennsylvania. And if we make this system fair for the people who are being discriminated against right now, we are making it better for everybody.
Are you nervous that you could be sent back to prison even now?
I'm still not a free man. I can't speak on my situation, but I'm nervous every day being on probation. I've been to jail at least 4 times for technical violations. I've never been back to jail since I've been wrongly convicted of this case in 2009. I've never been back to jail for criminal activity. So I always feel like I could be, my freedom could be taken. I could walk outside, somebody could accuse me of something, and I can end right back up in the state prison in the blink of an eye.
Okay. Do you
think police are inherently racist? That police are looking to arrest African American males?
Thank you very much. All right, thank you, sir.